everybody, it's Jen from Caketastic Cakes. In this quick little overview here, you're going to see this video will be how to make a cake featuring Superman and Batman all in one. And if you see any tools or supplies that I'm using, check the description below. It has a link to my website to help you out. Now to start my dual-sided superhero cake here, I'm starting with a 6-inch cake that I made 4 layers of and then just stacked them all up and sealed them all together with some crusting buttercream icing. And I wanted my cake to be a little bit on the taller side so I had plenty of room because I made some pretty big logos, not gonna lie. And yeah, I wanted room to show them off. So the first half of the cake I'm going to cover with this like a midnight blue, royal blue, I don't know what you kind of darker blue fondant that I rolled out and I laid over, as you can see, my cake. But I'm not going to worry about the back half of it. I'm just going to smooth out the front and go from there. Now, I did have my cake in the refrigerator to set up for like an hour, I would say, because it's a crusting buttercream. I want my cake nice and firm and strong. And then I added the fondant to it. Okay, so I smoothed it off on the front side a little bit, trimmed off my extra, there you go. And now what I'm doing is I have just one of my wooden sticks that I use for rolling out my gum paste, and I'm using it to make a straight cut straight across the center of the cake, as center as it could be. If you take the time to measure it, I'm sure it will be even more centered. And I'm using my X-Acto knife to then go down the sides, and all that extra now will be trimmed off and I'll be left with a nice clean cut. And even if it's not a perfectly clean cut, it kind of doesn't matter because it's going to be hidden by the capes. You can see the top picture in the little corner there. You can see that the capes are going to cover up the seams. So yeah, just make sure you got nice, smooth fronts to work with. And we'll just go from there. It doesn't have to be too involved or too difficult. And this is also a very nice cake if you can roll out fondant and if you can trace and cut out superhero logos, you can make a really cool cake. Like, you don't have to have crazy skills or mad artistic abilities. These kind of cakes are available for anyone to make. Now this is the other side of the cake. This is just black fondant. Again, just rolled it out. As you saw, I trimmed off the top half because I didn't have to go too far over now that I have my blue in place. And again, just smoothing down the front side, trying to make it nice and neat as possible. And then I'm going to trim off the extra just like before. So there's my little cutter. I use a pizza cutter that I happen to have in my drawer. I'm pretty sure that there are rolling cutters that are sold. I don't know how much they are because I just use my pizza cutter. You can also see where I stained my countertop because I was mixing my colors there. And for some reason, black always stains red on my countertop. But anyway, okay. What I'm doing here is I'm running my finger along the seam. I can feel where the ridge is of the blue and the black and trying to make kind of an impression so I have an idea of where to cut. As I go down, I'm going to lift it away. You're going to see I've got a gap in the center there. No problem, right? It's fondant, so it's got some flexibility. It's a little stretchy. And I just mush it together into the center. Try to keep your center line, nice and neat as possible, but don't go crazy. But yeah, once you get it all smoothed out, tidied up the bottom edge, there you go. All right, now I'm going to add the belt to my cake. Both Batman and Superman in the, more traditional old comic book styles had the bright yellow belts. And so that's what I'm sticking with. I'm not going, too Dark Knight or too Superman versus Batman here. Sticking old school and colorful. So I rolled out some yellow fondant, nice and long and thin, cut out a nice even strip. I want to say it was about 1 inch in height. Wrap it around the base of my cake. Try to do it as carefully and neatly as you can. And I'm joining it together at the one seam on the side. So that way I'm not going to have any seams showing because, again, the capes are going to hide everything. I'm using my fondant paddle to smooth everything out, make it look good. Now I'm going to cut the buckles for their belts. I'm just using a couple of squares. And again, just some more of the same yellow that I was working with. It kind of makes messy cuts, I'm not going to lie. I have yet to find some square cutters that, for lack of a better term, rock my world. And they seem to all have just not as sharp edges as I would hope to have. But anyway, I digress. Okay, so I'm centering my belt buckle on each one. You can see I cut out the smaller square in the center just to make a nice hollow square. Try to frame it up as nice and neat as you can when you put it on. Now I rolled out some more of the yellow again, and I'm going to cut Batman's Gadget pouches, I'm going to call them. I don't know what they're called. So I'm cutting out some squares. I cut out 4 squares, and I'm making an imprint of a little triangle just to make the little flap of each of the pouch, and I'm going to put 2 on either side of the belt buckle in the center. And I want to keep it away from the seam on the sides where the 2 colors meet, because you do want them to show. If you're going to go through the effort of making these things, you should be able to show them off a little bit, right? Alright, now I'm doing Superman's side. I don't really know that he has anything in particular on his, so I'm just giving him a little bit of belt loops, I guess you could call them. Just some yellow rectangles. I'm doing 3 on each side, again, to make a little bit more of a variety between the Batman and Superman side. Okay, these are the capes now. I'm going to make kind of like a teardrop shape out of the black fondant, and I'm hooking it over, as you can see, kind of like a letter C. And that is going to go now, when you're looking at the cake, it's going to go onto the left-hand side. I'm going to do the same thing in opposite land on the right-hand side. So now my hook goes to an opposite of the letter C, and that will go, looking at the cake head on again, onto the right-hand side. Just let them drape over, let them wrinkle and loop a little bit. That's all you got to do. And also just make sure that they connect in the center. Okay, now same thing for Superman's cape. I just rolled out some red fondant that I had. I'm going to kind of pinch it together. It was a little long, so I ripped some off of there. Again, you know, wrinkle it up, make those little folds in the fabric if you want, whatever. There you go. Now I'm doing the same thing in opposite on this side, so that when it hooks over, you'll still have the nice matted side. Because what I do when I roll out my fondant and gum paste is I put Crisco down. I know a lot of people use powdered sugar or a mixture of cornstarch, whatever. You know, this is just what works for me. But anyway, put your cake aside now and get ready to make the logos for your cake. Alright, I'm going to start with a printout I have of my Superman logo. I just went online, found one that was about 3 by 4 inches tall and wide, I guess, tall versus wide. Cut it out. I rolled out some yellow gum paste here, and it's pretty darn thin, I gotta say. And I'm cutting out the main shape here. When you cut it out and you see I'm dragging my knife, it is going to pull the corners. You can see they're not perfect anymore. So I'm using my piece of wood there to just kind of straighten up all the little wonkies that happen from pulling too much. Now I'm going to use my X-Acto knife and very carefully remove all of the light coloring, so I'm left with the S and the outline of the logo. And I also did choose the 3 by 4 inch size because typically, you know, if you put this on the side of a cake, you don't want it to be too tall, and 4 inches is a pretty standard size for one layer of cake. So yeah, that's why I did that. All right, now that I got my S carved out, I rolled out some red gum paste, very thin once again, and I'm just going to, again, carefully trace this out. You could definitely use fondant for this if you want to. You might find it difficult to lift the S up, or the red S, when you're done, because fondant is so stretchy and kind of soft, but you could do it. And if you did use it, maybe add a little CMC or Tylose powder to the red just so it's a little firmer. Just an idea, but yeah, you could definitely use fondant for these decorations if you wanted to. I'm using gum paste just because that's how I roll. Now, like I said, I'm using my X-Acto knife to try to very carefully go around and trim out all those big open spaces inside of the logo. It's not easy, I'm not going to lie, and it's not difficult, but it's not easy in that the little corners stick and they kind of pull a little bit like they did with the yellow. When I went back and had to touch it up just because it got kind of stretched out of shape a little bit. Just that kind of thing. You can see right here, I'm just kind of trying to tap and cut away the little tags that are hanging just to clean it up a little bit. So again, not hard. Anybody can trace, right? It's just, you know, it just is a little not as easy to trace in gum paste. Now, once it's all cut out, I just lift it up, place it on top of the yellow. I don't anchor it down with any water yet, because I have to do my adjusting. It's going to move a little bit no matter how careful I am. It's going to change a little bit. So now I adjust it, go back in there, retweak my edges, sharpen up my corners, try to make it look as nice and tidy as you can. There's a little bit of yellow sticking out, so I trim that off because I want the red to show and the yellow to be behind it. And there you go. All right, same thing for Batman. I just found the size of the logo that I liked. I'm going with the iconic Batman logo. I don't know if anyone cares, but in my research, I've come across over 40 different logos for Batman that have been used throughout his creation until now. So yes, there's a lot of Batman logos out there, but this one is considered the iconic one, which everyone kind of recognizes. So I have my yellow that I cut out there. I went back and then once, just like the Superman, I did the entire outline, went back and cut out the bat symbol in the center. My yellow is just as thin or thick, depending on your point of view, as the one for Superman. And again, I rolled my black out even thinner. I try to keep it pretty darn thin. You don't want to go too thin to the point where it will become too stretchy if you pick it up or fragile if you handle it, but try to go lighter on it if you can. Again, using my X-Acto knife to follow the curves around. And what I'm trying to do is start from a point where it won't pull the tips of the little points and everything into the in toward the center of the Batman logo. So when I'm doing these angles and everything, I'm trying to finish on an outward sweep. I'm going to not be able to avoid it completely, like right there. I finished that ear on an outward sweep. I started from the center of the curve on that outer wing there so that I can keep the tips as sharp as possible. But you're going to see a little bit of a difference in a moment in what I'm talking about. And even if it happens, you just tweak it when you're done. So right there, see that one center peak between the tail and the wing on the left versus the right? It comes down a little bit further on the right than on the left. Yeah, just little things like that. And that's why I'm putting the paper cutout back on top so I can readjust everything to make it more even. And then once it's even, it goes on top of the logo, or the yellow part of the logo, as centered as possible. I'm just rubbing the back of my fingernail along the edge to make it a little smoother. I'm rolling out some more black really long, really thin. And then I'm going to cut a nice even stripe right down it to create the border around the Batman logo. So it's nice and long and as even as possible. This one, I'm going to go ahead and put some water on because it can stick. I'm not going to readjust this when I'm done. But once you're happy with the position of the Batman logo, you're going to go back, add a little bit of water underneath of it so it will stay in place. So yes, just a little bit of adjusting, a little bit of rubbing, a little bit of trimming. See that big fold that was in there that I didn't even realize was in there? So clean it up, do whatever you got to do to make it look nice and pretty. And then we're going to attach them to the cakes. And you want to do this before they set. You still want flexibility in here. So I just pressed the Superman one on the cake. And just in order to make it stick, I put a little bit of water onto the back of the decoration. And then, of course, you got to get like the little duster lint that might stick to the top off of there. And now you got that Superman in place. It's time to put the Batman in place again. Just the same idea, just a little bit of water on the back of it, center it right in the middle, nice height above your buckle, not too far from the top. And you're done. So yeah, you've got a two-sided, really cool superhero cake featuring Batman and Superman that really wasn't, too high on the difficulty level. And don't forget, this type of style can be adapted to other superheroes too. So if your kid has two favorites, do them both, right? So I hope you found this video helpful. Please like and subscribe because it really does help me out. I got a lot of other videos out there, so take a look, as well as other superhero ones. And as always, thank you for watching Caketastic Cakes.